Today on the official Marvel podcast, we're celebrating the release of Marvel Studios' Captain America: Brave New World with a roundup from the red carpet premiere event.
Plus, we'll take you behind the scenes with the film's writers, executive producer, production designer, and, of course, producer and president of Marvel Studios, Kevin Feige.
I think the film that we're most looking at in terms of a comparable to this is Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
And to round things out, I sit down with my Sam Wilson Captain America comic book co-writer, Greg Pak, and chat about Sam Wilson's legacy, the Captain America mantle, and so much more.
There are a lot of Black Captain Americas of one kind or another kicking around in the Marvel Universe, but you seldom see them all together. In fact, I don't think we have seen them all together until now.
I'm Sade Spence.
And I'm Evan Narcisse.
And this is the official Marvel podcast.
Captain America: Brave New World is finally here. And man, there's nothing like a new Marvel movie drop. Isn't that right, Sade?
You are absolutely right, Evan. I love Marvel movie season. It is the best. And judging by the crowd at the red carpet premiere, we're not the only ones who think so.
Here's Anthony Mackie, direct from the film's premiere.
It's amazing, man. I mean, this has been a 2-year journey, and every step of the way it's been something. Be it the snowstorm in New Orleans, be it something. It's always been something. So I'm just excited for people to see the movie, man. People did such amazing work in this movie. Julius did such a great job directing this movie.
Right.
Like, it's just, I'm excited for people to see it, man.
Danny Ramirez was just as excited.
It feels just like that, honestly. It's a surreal moment. My family's out here, all my loved ones. It's one of the most amazing corners I've ever rounded in my life. Because you round that corner and you see you guys, and we do it for you. So it's beautiful to be out here. So much of the preparation physically, but also through reading the comics and building out Joaquin in the way that I should. The beautiful part of waiting from the TV show to the movie was that I got to sit in that character a lot more and really discover what made him tick, why he was so eager to prove his worth. And so it was a blessing to really have those 2 years between the show and the film itself. And I think what you're going to watch in this movie is someone that understands why he wants this responsibility. And yeah.
Harrison Ford, who plays President Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, was also in attendance.
In a fantastic universe, it's really nice to have a human story to kind of have an emotional connection to the realities of that part of our lives. And that was satisfying. We got a very good story, I think, to satisfy that ambition.
On our last episode, we heard from the stars of Captain America: Brave New World. And now it's time to get to know the minds behind the film. Here's producer and president of Marvel Studios, Kevin Feige, on where we last left Sam Wilson.
The very end of Avengers Endgame was Old Man Steve passing the shield to Sam Wilson. We then saw in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier Disney Plus series that that's a complex issue, that there was a lot to unpack in that decision for Sam Wilson. In this movie, he is Captain America, and he has made that decision to become unabashedly Captain America. But what does it mean to be Captain America when you're not a super soldier, which we know definitively Sam Wilson is not, and in a world where the Avengers are not currently active? There's not a team around calling themselves the Avengers. Steve Rogers is gone. Tony Stark, the benefactor, is gone. They've sort of split and gone their own ways and doing what they believe is right in individual ways, but not in a way that Steve Rogers always had. Steve Rogers always had a team, whether it was in World War II or the minute he woke up and Nick Fury recruited him, he was with the Avengers. Sam Wilson doesn't have either of those things. And he's entered a world where we're really tapping into the geopolitics. I think the film that we're most looking at in terms of a comparable to this is Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which is a relatively grounded story for Sam Wilson to get involved in. But it also is about Sam Wilson trying to gather his own team. We saw in his series that he left his wings with somebody. And by the time this movie starts, Joaquin has taken on the new mantle of Falcon. So Sam Wilson is not only not the Falcon anymore, he has somebody who is taken on that mantle.
And Kevin is very excited to resolve one of the cliffhangers from Marvel Studios' The Incredible Hulk from way back in 2008.
Everybody remembers that one of the very special things that happened at the end of The Incredible Hulk was Tony Stark walked in and talked to Thunderbolt Ross about putting a team together. And that was the beginning of the continuity. Well, there's something else happened in a tag, which is when Samuel Stearns got into a lab accident. We leave him sort of on the ground as the veins in his forehead is pulsing. And fans of the comic knew, that was our foreshadowing, our hinting that he will become one of the biggest, most classic comic book villains of all time, the Leader. And for years, people have been asking us, when will that happen? And it was very exciting to announce publicly recently that we're finally going to see the Leader in his full form for the very first time, portrayed once again by the great Tim Blake Nelson, who is an incredible, incredible actor. It's also fun that there are some people who will go see the new Captain America movie and be excited because we're paying off that tag from The Incredible Hulk. There are a lot of people who will have no idea we set that up with The Incredible Hulk because the movie will work as a new introduction to that character as well. And that's always been the balance at Marvel Studios, is working on projects that connect for people like us who know the comics and who are fans and who are tracking all the movies, but also people like us who sometimes just want to go to the movies and have a good time and then not think about it again until the next one comes out. And we wanted to connect for both.
And naturally, like all of us, he geeked out about casting Harrison Ford.
Occasionally in Hollywood, people do what's called generals. And actors call, or agents call, or filmmakers call, or you call them and want to set up a general. You don't really know what you have in mind, but you get to know somebody, let's do lunch. We never do lunch at Marvel Studios, or we're too busy. We always say, let's meet with somebody when we have something to pitch them. But I did get a call once from an actor who just wanted to do a general. And the agent called and said, well, there's somebody who wants to come in and talk. I said, well, I don't always really do that. They said, it's Harrison Ford. I said, yes. I'll go to his house. I'll wait in his driveway, whatever he wants. No, he'll come. So he came to our office, walked around, had an amazing lunch. I don't know what I said because I was in awe. But what he said was he really liked our universe, and he really liked and relished the chance to do something different. So the fact that Harrison Ford is playing President Ross / Red Hulk is kind of one of the many pinch yourself moments for me at Marvel Studios. It's yet another element that is going to make this movie extremely exciting.
So, what was it like to build out the characters in Captain America Brave New World? Writers and veterans of Marvel Studios, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Dalan Musson and Malcolm Spellman, discussed their approach.
I think because the storytelling is different, it didn't take any shaking off, like the series was gone. You know what I'm saying? Because this is just, movie storytelling isn't even similar to serialized storytelling. And so it really did feel like we were kind of starting from scratch, you know what I'm saying? So we didn't feel no hangover from the buddy cop dynamic. This is, like I said, we knew we wanted to do sort of a horror thriller, you know what I'm saying, for this one. And that the spotlight being on Sam, I mean, he's partnered up with multiple people, but we wanted to position these heroes differently, and Sam in particular as being very, very human. And not just the fact, the most obvious thing is his refusal to take the super soldier serum, but also the fact that he has a very common man's a point of view and access to humanity. I think Sam sort of embodies these heroes that may be taking on galactic fights or whatever, but feel much more like human beings than the generation of heroes before them.
Like any good story, I think you have Sam dealing with conflict. And, internally we've talked about the stuff he's dealing with as being Captain America, what that means to him. Externally, we're bringing back President Thaddeus Ross, who, while they might be pointed in the same direction and technically on the same side, from what we've seen of President Ross and what we've seen, obviously, of Sam as Falcon and now as Captain America, they have very different ways of going about things. And so even if they're tackling the same problem, they're doing it in very different ways. And the problem that they're going to be tackling is we're pulling back one of those threads and bringing back somebody that, you know, definitely the comic fans are going to recognize and I think get excited about.
And what can we expect from Samuel Stearns in this film? One word, madness.
We wanted Stearns, like Stearns in this one is we leaned into sort of the madness, and not madness really as a mental illness, but madness as self-induced by desire for power, by too much intellect and ambition, and those two things corrupting each other. We're trying to make him someone that is scary in that way, that someone who is completely unhinged, and not unhinged like yelling and snickering, but unhinged meaning devoid of any, like if you look at the villains in many Marvel movies, they're torn about what they're doing, you know what I'm saying? They might have a lot of good in them or whatever. It's not that the leader, Stearns, is evil in ours, but he is definitely not someone who is on both spectrum of kind of good, kind of bad. He's definitely a dude who has bad intentions and does not think twice about it because he's driven himself mad and talks to himself nonstop, and believes that only he can lead the world the right way, and the right way is mercilessly being indebted to science.
Our favorite villains are characters that if you kind of turn the lens a little bit, that they're the hero of their own story, and that they can completely justify the things they're doing, as atrocious as the events might be. And the leader really thinks he's doing this for the good of everybody and for everyone's best interest, which makes him more terrifying because, like Malcolm's saying, he'll stop at nothing because he thinks he's doing the right thing.
So what is Anthony Mackie bringing to the role of Sam Wilson? Executive producer Charles Newirth says, a personal transformation.
Well, I think Anthony, in the first place, is a remarkable actor. I worked with him many, many years ago when he was doing Broadway in about, I think it was 2006, when he was in his 20s. And you could see the kind of depth of professionalism and his talent that he brought even then, and all the different roles that he's done in between then and this Captain America character. So he is an actor who brings tremendous complexity and depth and understands that. And I think that is the bonus of this film, that he does go through a kind of transformation, and it is a personal transformation. And once again, that ability to feel that you've earned something and that you've earned the respect of the role that you're given.
Charles also shares what sets this film apart within the world of the MCU.
This isn't your daddy's Marvel movie. It's going to be different. It is sort of this thriller genre within the MCU genre. And I think audiences will have not seen a Marvel film, if I'm not mistaken, for about 6 months. There might be some things on streaming, but as far as something theatrical. And I think that this will be a bit of a refresher in terms of how people see Marvel films, because it doesn't take place in outer space. It doesn't take place in any kind of alternate universe. It takes place on planet Earth in a very real way. And that is something that's exciting to me, because I think it's going to ground things and bring things home for people and make it very, very relatable. I think most audiences want to have characters they can relate to in some way. They see themselves in those characters. They see who they want to be. They see who maybe they shouldn't be. So I think all of these things are going to come to fruition in this movie.
What makes the world of Captain America Brave New World look and feel so real? According to production designer Ramsay Avery, placing actors in the right environment is key.
It really was important to Julius and to the producers that what this story was is it felt of the moment, of our day, of the time, that it was something that was very specific to the characters moving through a very real and honest world. It's always The goal in filmmaking or television work is to put as much in camera as you possibly can. And every project I've ever been on starts off with, we're going to put it all in camera. And then by the time we start working through everything, it turns out for various reasons that we don't. A lot of times it ends up being a lot of green screen work. And it's really hard on the actors to put them in those environments because they have to not only do the performance, but they have to build the world in their heads. And it's just tricky. So anywhere we can make that world real. We're helping the actors, we're helping the performance. And even though special visual effects is really good these days, there's still a sense that when you're extending it, the audience kind of knows it's an extension. So trying to find the storylines and the visuals that could make it as real as we could drove some decisions.
Ramsay also explains his approach to production design.
I think you're designing for the story. You're designing for what the camera sees and for how the characters move through that environment to tell that story. But you're also designing for real people. Like when an actor steps onto a set, you want to make it as real and tangible for them as you possibly can. No one's ever going to see that menu. No one's going to ever really open the drawer inside a desk to see what's in the desk. When I say no one, I mean the camera is not going to see that. But the actor is, or the director is, or the producers are, and it helps all of them, particularly the actors and the director, really get into the environment. Again, it just makes their jobs that little bit easier so they can concentrate on the performance that they need to concentrate on. It's kind of fun, too, also to put those, to try to put little Easter eggs in. Sometimes, every once in a while, you'll see that something in this movie's been manufactured by Stark Industries. You know, there'll be a little label in there that we place it within the MCU in these kind of subtle ways. And again, it's just trying to build that world as solidly as you can within the resources that we have and the time that we're given. That, I think, brings the magic to the movie.
So while all of those talented people worked on bringing Sam Wilson to life on the big screen, Evan, you got a chance to bring him to life in the most recent comic book series, Sam Wilson, Captain America, right?
Yeah, that's right, Sade. Totally did. But I didn't do it alone. Alongside an incredible team of editors, artists, and more, I co-wrote the story with the legendary Marvel writer Greg Pak. You might know him from his iconic Hulk runs, including stories like World War Hulk and Planet Hulk, or even his more recent work on the Darth Vader comic book series. He's truly amazing, he's a great friend, and I got a chance to sit down with him to talk about what we set out to accomplish in this new Captain America series.
Evan, this is so exciting. You have to tell me more about what goes down in the comic book. No spoilers, of course.
All right, so the name of the storyline is Better Angels. And what I can say is Sam Wilson, our Captain America, gets embroiled in this new venture by a billionaire tech CEO who's promising to build a utopian community thousands of miles in the sky. Sam's cousin, Billy, is part of this community. And when they find out that the Red Hulk is head of security, things get even more complicated from there. Here's me and Greg talking about it some more. So we've talked a lot about approaching this project in a specific way with the lens of accentuating what makes Sam different from Steve Rogers. But what do you think are the core kind of elements that make Sam a different kind of Captain America from Steve?
I mean, the most obvious thing is race. He is a black man as Captain America, and that is a different experience from a white dude being Captain America. And Sam is also a social worker, and that's really what makes this book sing, I think, and that's what makes the character sing. And I think he's got a different way of going about things as a result, and we're trying real hard to explore that and to bring out those nuances. It's also like there are a lot of Black Captain Americas of one kind or another kicking around in the Marvel Universe, but you seldom see them all together. In fact, I don't think we have seen them all together until now.
Yeah.
And having a bunch of different Black heroes who either wear the flag or are, have come to their powers because of this quote unquote patriotic super soldier program. They all have different politics, basically.
Yeah. It's funny when you were talking about Sam and him being a social worker, like one of the knocks on superhero comics a lot of times is like, if they just talked first, like they could have avoided this fight. And I think Sam is a character who does talk about the scenarios that he finds himself in and with the people he's engaged with. I think it's a really important part of his character. And the other part that has been really important for me, being a fan and now somebody contributing to Sam's publishing history, is that he has community. Steve is obviously always going to be locked in time to World War II, right? Even the further we get away from it, it doesn't matter. That's like a core part of his character. And that means his family and friends he had back then, with the exception of Bucky, of course. But most people he knew and kind of came of age with are not around anymore. And, obviously Steve has found family in the Avengers and other people in his supporting cast over the decades. But, Sam has like blood relations, and we want to bring that to the fore in this series too. Can we talk about like who's the cousin that we've introduced, Billy?
Yeah.
Who's I think becoming both of our favorite characters.
Yeah, totally.
One of our favorite characters in the series. But like, why is she important to you, and what do you think is so great about her in this story?
I mean, we were talking about the whole social worker thing, and I think you had this idea of like, you just had a line, which is like, you're up in the sky, Sam. Having somebody on the ground is like, you're up in the sky. We're the little people down the ground. You get to fly, but, what about us? That's also another thing that's different about him, is that he flies, which is cool. But that using that symbolically is like, he is somebody who could fly away, but he doesn't, because he's ground level still. He's connected to so many folks on the ground. And through that kind of talk, we came up with this idea of like, oh, he's got a cousin, and he's got a cousin who's like a hustler, who's always trying to work things and going to get him in trouble. And also Sam's sort of like that lawful good character. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, he's like Steve in that way. He's a bit of a straight man in his own book. Right. And so we need, some kind of joker to kind of break things up and pop a few balloons and all that.
Yeah, just to set up the story a little bit more properly for those who haven't picked up the first issue yet, we open with Sam doing superhero business uptown in Harlem, where he's from, and then making his way to a big cookout celebration in upstate New York. He brings Billy along with him and Steve, and the party is actually for Isaiah Bradley, obviously another World War II veteran, another recipient of the super soldier serum. So he's been around for a long time. And, the cookout scene is kind of gone semi-viral on social media platforms. It's got Luke Cage on the grill. And basically it's like a gathering of some of the most prominent Marvel Black superheroes. So Monica Rambeau is there. Miles Morales is there. War Machine is there. Isaac Ikeda, one of your creations from Agents of Atlas, a biracial Black and Japanese character. Why do you think people are reacting to it so much?
Well, I mean, there is just the viral notion of the cookout and who gets invited to the cookout and all that kind of stuff. So it's just fun. But what I love about it is that it does kind of hit that, we get that just big fun splash page of all these Marvel superheroes chilling. You had this notion of, doing this, making this into a tribute, like a birthday celebration for this community's biggest hero.
Yeah.
Eder Messias is the artist, and I think he did a great job drawing this kind of, moving moment.
Yeah. So for our listeners who may not know, Isaiah Bradley was introduced in a 2003 series called Truth, Red, White, and Black. And the main plot of that series is to chronicle secret experiments that were done during World War II to help develop and refine the super soldier serum, which gives Steve Rogers his superhuman abilities. And in a move that was meant to invoke the Tuskegee experiments, the experiments were done on Black soldiers in secret. And those experiments ended up very tragically and fatally for some of them. A group of soldiers survive. And out of that group of survivors, Isaiah's the only one who actually gets to put on a costume and embody a larger-than-life role. Later that year, in 2003, there was another Marvel Comics series called The Crew, written by Christopher Priest. He creates a character called Josiah X, who is the son of Isaiah Bradley, created through cloning. And he appears in that one series more than 20 years ago and was never seen since. So as we were, developing the plot for this book, I was like, I want to bring back Josiah X because he's a great character. I think he embodies so much of the struggle of what it means to be African American. So Isaiah's legacy very much moved through Josiah, but what happened to his dad also informs the kind of superhero that Josiah is. And Josiah's code name is now Shadow Soldier. And we're doing some cool things with him that you'll see in the series. But Greg, talk to me about what it was like for you to kind of interact with that history. And I think some of it, like, you may have even been learning about at the same time.
Yeah, I loved the idea of bringing both these characters in there. I mean, I love the way the whole thing starts off with Isaiah and not looking away from the fact that this country often eats people up. And that could happen to Sam. That could happen to any of the heroes at this cookout, Another detail of it is that by this time in the Marvel timeline, Isaiah is largely nonverbal. Age has caught up to him and he is not doing well. And so there's this whole notion of you can be used up and left behind. And then Sam goes on to meet Josiah, who is very active and has a more radical sense of what his purpose is in the world and who he's going to fight for and why. I love the detail you brought to the redesign where, Sam's got the Captain America shield with the star and the colors on it. And Josiah's got a black shield. Like, it's just black. And I think it's so simple and it's perfect. And then the other character who is part of all this is Patriot, who's the young dude, the next generation. And he's kind of seen what's going on with all of these uncle figures and is going to have to find his own way.
And I think it's part of all these motivations that we've been talking about for Sam and Josiah and Isaiah that also show up in Elijah Bradley, Patriot, right? He's Isaiah Bradley's grandson and probably best known as a member of the Young Avengers. And he's a character who decided to follow in his grandfather's footsteps. And, we're meeting Elijah as he himself has been away from the spotlight for a while and is coming back into the superhero thing. So him being at his grandfather's birthday celebration is really important. And he's going to show up later on in the story as well. So again, this is very much a story that's as much about family as it is about even billionaires, machinations, 10,000 miles in the sky. So those are some of the pieces that we're playing with in the Sam Wilson series. But another big piece is a big guy who's red and smashes very well. Obviously, we're talking about the Red Hulk, but it's a Red Hulk. And because there's more than one in the Marvel Comics universe. One of the Red Hulks is Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, longtime antagonist of Bruce Banner, the main Green Hulk. But that's not who we're writing in this series. We're writing Robert Maverick, and he's a character who has, another military background. He can Hulk out, but he can only do so for an hour a day. Greg, what have you loved about writing this character? I have my thoughts, but I'll let you go first.
Yeah. Well, I'm amused because, in our original pitch, it was, we had Thunderbolt Ross in there, but it turns out that, given his current continuity, he couldn't fit into this story. But fortunately, because comics are what comics are, there's another Red Hulk who's a very similar military background, but we could, it's just more flexible. We can do more things with.
And, the thing I like about Maverick, he's kind of like an 80s action hero version of the Red Hulk, right? So he's kind of gleeful. He's got the Tom Selleck mustache. He talks a big game and backs it up usually. Whereas Ross is a lot more buttoned up and old school military where by the book, chain of command, need to know type stuff. And Maverick's point me at the thing you want broken and I'll do the breaking.
Well, the other thing I like about it too is that you end up with this big spectrum, because we've talked about the spectrum of Black patriotic superheroes, but now we've got, Steve Rogers and Robert Maverick in the mix too. So it's so many different angles on what it means to serve your country or your community. The other thing I like about it too is that people are not monoliths. So you're going to hear, and there's a lot of arguing in this book.
Yes.
Right? And you will see people change their minds, you know what I mean? And be swayed and do things that they wouldn't have done at the beginning of the book by the time the middle of the book rolls around. And I like that a lot too, because of the challenges that people are facing. You're going to see people making different choices. And I think that's real. You don't always get that.
Yeah.
Like very often characters just kind of fulfill a type. And we definitely are playing with types, right? But we're also giving them real challenges and letting these conflicts take them where it feels real.
And, I love that you said what you said about groups, different sociocultural groups not being monoliths, because I think that's one of our main thematic pillars in the story, right? Like Sam thinks that things should proceed a certain way. Josiah does, Billy does, and even Patriot does, and there's shades of disagreement and realignment and listening to each other. There's a real kind of a negotiation that happens, in between the fight scenes and sometimes during the fight scenes about hey, how do we move forward together? What's the best way for us to kind of win the day without compromising our ideals, or do we need to compromise them? That's one of the things I think is a really necessary message to reinforce in a society that is like a polyglot like ours, right? We have people from all different walks of life, different countries, chasing, what we call the American dream of a better life. This is what Captain America is about. It's about, the tension between the symbolism and the reality. And we're definitely mining that. And I'm glad that we are. I'm glad to be doing it with you, Greg.
Yeah, no, likewise. There's always stuff that we're kind of taking it to another level. You know what I mean? We're looking at, we're each throwing stuff in there and then asking that extra question,
Yeah. I want to say thank you to Greg again for joining us on the show. You can pick up Sam Wilson, Captain America at your local comic book store or on digital storefronts anywhere on the internet.
This May marks the big screen debut of the Thunderbolts team, featuring Yelena Belova, Red Guardian, the Winter Soldier, and more. But did you know that the team's comic book roots stretch back to 1997? 28 years ago today, Thunderbolts' #1 hit comic book stands. Written by Kurt Busiek and illustrated by Mark Bagley, the original team included heroes like Meteorite, Atlas, Techno, Mach 1, and Songbird, all led by the mysterious and patriotic hero Citizen V. But if those names all sound unfamiliar, there's a reason for that. By the end of the first issue, readers were hit with a jaw-dropping twist. Citizen V was none other than Baron Helmut Zemo. And the Thunderbolts weren't heroes at all. They were secretly the masters of evil. Moonstone, Goliath, Fixer, Beetle, and Screaming Mimi, posing as a superhero team hoping to gain the public's trust. What made the plot twist even more memorable was editorial's ability to keep a secret. The team's true identity was completely kept under wraps until the comic's release, making the big reveal all the more shocking. The comic was a massive success, running for 80 issues and inspiring numerous relaunches and reimaginings over the years. Thanks to its innovative storytelling and unforgettable twist, the Thunderbolts have become one of Marvel's most unique and unpredictable teams, blending themes of deception, redemption, and the fine line between hero and villain.
Next time on the Official Marvel Podcast, we're talking Captain America Brave New World spoilers with Tim Blake Nelson, Giancarlo Esposito, and more.
You'll never see me play a character like this. You've never seen me play something like this. This guy is good. This guy is an assassin. This guy knows what he's doing.
That is it for today. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're listening to us now.
And don't forget to drop a comment or a review.
This episode was hosted by Evan Narcisse and me, Sade Spence.
Our producers are Jasmine Estrada and Anita Flores.
Thanks to Senior Manager of Audio Production and Development, Brad Barton, and Production Manager, Emily Godfrey.
Mixed by Zachary Goldberg.
Theme music by Ida Akbal.
Executive producers are Larissa Rosen and Jesse Berger.
Thanks for listening. See you guys next week.
Bye, everybody.